This is Rosen Institute's Your Law Firm, where Ned Days and Lee Rosen cover management, marketing, finance, and new technologies for building the practice you deserve. Rosen Institute members received this episode early, as well as exclusive segments on systematizing your required business filings, and an answer to a member question about the magic number of hours to spend on marketing and systems development during the week. Get access to everything you're missing at roseninstitute.com/join. Here's Lee Rosen.
It's good to be with you today from Hiroshima, Japan. We spent a few days here a few years ago, and we knew right away that it was a place that we would want to come back to for a longer stay, and that instinct, it was right. Hiroshima is a small city, about 1 million people, but it has everything that you could want. It has great restaurants and good shopping and excellent infrastructure and all the services that come with being a major tourist destination. Ironically, much of that tourism exists because of what happened here in 1945. It's strange how war turns places into attractions. We have probably visited more battlefields than amusement parks. That's not a comparison to be proud of, but it says something about how history pulls us in. War is terrible for humanity, but it is great for tourism. I still can't quite wrap my head around that, yet here we are, 2 blocks from where the bomb exploded overhead.
It's time for your tech tip. AI app builders are everywhere, and I've talked about a few of them already. One of the big issues that we as non-developer consumers run into with most of the build an app from a prompt services out there is that while they make for really cool tech demos and build basic calculators or forms from a few instructions, it's not really practical to actually do anything with them. As a developer, using them to build out a lot of scaffolding or boilerplate and make some tweaks to the underlying code yourself is a little more useful. And most of them now provide standardized database functionality so that you can actually save accounts and records. But for us, let's say you build a calculator or intake form or some other app with one of these services. The question becomes, what do I do with the code that it has written? How do I publish it? How do I update it? How easy is it to have a developer make more fine-grained tunes and fixes? BuildZero.ai, which is the word build, the numeral zero.ai, is a platform very much in the vein of prompt-to software tools that we have discussed before, like Lovable or Bolt. I want to look at why I think it's probably a little more useful, and then at why the prompt-to app arena is likely just a stepping stone to something much bigger. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I don't regularly recommend apps and software that are cobbled together by some 13-year-old in Kigali who may or may not be up to date on the latest security practices. But BuildZero is a product from a reputable and well-established company, Auth0, which has been around for well over a decade, handling unified login and authentication services. You have probably logged into something in the past week or two that was using Auth0 to manage social logins or other user authentication. BuildZero is a little more restricted than some of the other AI app builder options, but that actually makes it a bit more useful. It's leaning more on pre-built UI components instead of just winging it each time you run a prompt, and there is a lot of pre-built plumbing on the back end for integration with tools like Stripe, Google Analytics, Salesforce, HubSpot, Outlook, Google Workspace, Notion, Airtable, and a lot more. The result is that the things you make are going to look and feel quite similar across projects, and configuring where the data is coming from is a lot less clunky and more reliable than similar tools that expect you to have a little more experience with software development. It's more about creating the underlying tool or dashboard than changing the look or the interface. And on that note, at least for the moment, I think it mostly works as a way to build tools for yourself and a few people on your team. You have the option to publish what you build to anyone with the link, although they say that functionality is in beta. What you will really be doing is building things for yourself or other users that you add to your account. Using BuildZero to create a dashboard or an interface on top of things like billing and client records and document storage is where it really shines. I'm guessing I'm not the only one who has been put off by a lot of the reporting suites built into payment and marketing products. They tend to be very complicated at the very least, and usually it's a huge extra charge for the privilege anyway. Using AI to play within a slightly more confined space to create reports, dashboards, and control panels that connect to a few different pieces of software in ways that don't work out of the box is, I think, a lot more useful day to day than trying to create janky customer-facing tools with prompts. I'm not saying we won't get there, but we aren't really there yet. And in fact, at least for the time being, the more these AI app builders or dashboard tools are restricted to working within the confines of a particular platform, the more useful they tend to be for actually giving you a report you want or building a tool that you will actually use. Something like Softer.io, which we've talked about before, is a good example of this. You have fairly traditional functionality as far as setting up or managing user accounts and connecting data sources, and the AI is essentially building what you ask for using their preset toolkit of features. Nothing you couldn't ultimately build by clicking and dragging and dropping, but without having to spend weeks learning the ins and outs of the tool. And that leads us to where exactly all of this is headed, because honestly, even something like Build Zero feels a bit like a stopgap until we get to what seems to be the end goal of the big players like Google, Facebook, OpenAI, and others, which is assembling user interfaces on the fly in our normal chatbot interactions. Instead of building special apps, or in our case, building and then packaging and then distributing and then maintaining software as we currently think of it, and as tools like Lovable or even Build Zero still operate, we as users of ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude will in the future authorize access to our various accounts, and the AI tools will act as orchestrators for whatever it is we want to see or build using that information. The current approach is having a tool custom built for either internal use or for client use that is a wrapper around data in our various other software packages, be it practice management records, document storage, document automation, or client communication. Going forward, we may not interact with specific apps so much as we allow our AI platform of choice to access our data or give our clients access to that data rather than access to a tool or software that we've built around it, and then let the AI tool build us whatever we want using that data. Google has a very brief but interesting demo video out for their Disco project, which is a browser that lets you use prompts to build an interface around information on websites that you have open. It's invite only at the moment, but it should be available widely soon. They've also started work on an open specification for standardizing how tools like Gemini and ChatGPT will be able to generate interfaces from information they grab from other software and services. That's called A2UI. The idea being that there would be a standard set of interface objects so that LLM chatbots could start building interfaces to allow for booking, filtering, sorting, and interacting with data from third-party services right inside of your ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini conversation. Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram, has just acquired Manus.im, another prompt to app/dashboard/tool service, so they are no doubt working on this as well. If you've used a banking or financial service that lets you authorize connections to all of your different bank and investment accounts to view them on a single dashboard, that's probably more in the zone of where this is headed, except that in addition to whatever defaults you have available, we will be able to ask for whatever else we want and have it built for us in a few seconds inside. I'm Ned Days, and that's your tech tip.
And now for your moment of concise advice. Every new hire in my law firm got the talk. It was not the HR talk about parking and benefits. It was my talk. One page of scribbles that looked like the classic excuse of my dog ate my homework. My notes were a mess because I revised them every time after I gave the talk, like some desperate philosopher trying to perfect his own origin story. I wanted to get it right. I knew that what I was doing when I gave the talk, I knew that it was important. On their first day of employment with the law firm, I would shut the door and tell them what we were about. I didn't do it because I loved giving speeches. I did it because if I didn't say it, nobody would. The culture of the law firm had to come from somewhere, and apparently that somewhere was a guy with coffee breath and a mild case of imposter syndrome. I told the stories of the law firm, and it was awkward at first. I would try to sound profound and mostly sounded like a motivational poster from a dentist's office, but I pushed through because sincerity matters more than polish. I told them what we did, We served people in crisis. I explained that we listened with empathy, that we kept caseloads small enough so that we had time to care. I explained that we answered phones like human beings, that we were not here to squeeze hours, that we were here to make a difference. Yes, they were lofty words, but if we didn't believe in something bigger than billable hours, then what was the point? And then I would tell them the story. I would tell them how I quit my job because my employer wouldn't let me go to a CLE program that I knew would make a difference in my ability to help my clients. I went on and told them how I started the law firm before I even had furniture, how that decision, that stubborn belief that learning matters, that learning helps us to serve our clients, ended up changing the lives of two little boys because we helped their parents split amicably. Their parents avoided the courtroom, avoided destruction, and built something new through collaborative law, something that I learned about by going to one of those programs. That training made a difference to our clients. And I would sit there and I would watch the new hires fidget. Some smiled politely, some looked at me terrified. A few probably wondered if they had just joined a cult. I didn't care because underneath the awkward jokes and my grand speech, there was something true. We mattered. What we did for our clients mattered, and we needed to treasure that every single day. And I'll tell you, I had this gut instinct that these speeches mattered, even if I couldn't explain it clearly, even to myself. I just knew. But the imposter syndrome, even if the only person paying attention to me was me, it was strong. And so I wavered. For a while, I stopped doing these talks. I got busy, and I didn't really believe in my beliefs. I told myself that everyone already got it. But the air, it started to leak out of the balloon that I was building, the one that I called the Rosen Law Firm. The culture thinned out fast, like soup stretched too far. People worked, but they didn't believe. And when people stop believing, profits follow them right out the door. I had to inflate the balloon. It was all I had. It was all I could do. I needed to build the culture of this law firm. So I brought the speech back, and this time it stuck. Something changed. The team started giving their own versions of the talk to the new folks. They'd tell our story in their own way. And that's when I knew that it wasn't about me anymore. It was about us. The story had become collective. That's the thing about buy-in. It doesn't come from memos or mission statements. It comes from a room, a story, and a leader willing to say something real, even when it's uncomfortable. You can't fake purpose, but you can model it until it spreads. And once it spreads, everything changes. The culture, the work, the results. Profits, they don't start with numbers. They start with belief. Belief turns into buy-in, and buy-in turns into everything that matters. And that's your moment of concise advice. Wrapping up from Hiroshima, thanks for spending a few minutes with me and Ned today. We hope you have a great weekend and an even better week next week. Keep plugging away, moving forward, and getting things done. You're on the right track. You'll get there, I promise. We're all in this together, and together we build better practices through better marketing, better management, and better technology. Until next time, I'm Lee Rosen.
Thanks for listening to Your Law Firm. Subscribe to the Friday File at roseninstitute.com and join thousands of other lawyers who are working on instead of in their businesses. You'll find safe, successful, actionable approaches for transforming your practice. Join us today at roseninstitute.com.